Hello, I am Sara Raney, and I'm not an attorney, but the mother of Kenley Gene Raney, who lost his life to a drunk driver, Dennis Rodriguez Abeda Jr., on January 25th, 2019, in Lubbock, Texas. It was actually in a rest area called Shadow Water where my son had pulled off with his beautiful blue-heeled Australian dog, Marshall, to get some rest before he went on an interview for an emergency room position. Now, I do want to state the reason why I can say Dennis's name or the man who killed my son is because he is now in prison. But today, I want to discuss some standard legal strategies and potential legal loopholes that to me, well, are ridiculous, but to a defense attorney, well, they use it to get their clients off, or at least get them reduced sentences. Now, this does include the felony vehicle manslaughter while intoxicated. Now, in some states, this would be DUI, driving under the influence. However, it can also be referred to as DWI, while driving while intoxicated, and I'm sure many other names depending on the states because rules and regulations vary amongst the states. Now, understanding understanding this can help us better navigate and anticipate our challenges. I know I have said this many times, but the reality is that the criminal has all the rights. We do have victims' rights, CVRA, Crime Victims' Rights Act, but they are rarely enforced, as what happened in my case. Now, most people think that TV is a reliable source of information. Well, reality is nothing like it is on TV, and believe me, you will get advice from well-meaning people who use TV as their legal resource. The reality is that you are alone in this fight. Why? Well, it takes years. That's what I've been living for the past 6 years and continue to live with protest letters and a lot of other civil court trials and many other things that are involved. Now, like I said, your life is now fighting for justice and just surviving. Everyone else has their own lives, and honestly, they do not understand all that's involved, including time in getting the person who killed your loved one in prison and keeping him. The mounds of horrendous paperwork and red tape. Then there is the elephant in the room, depression, which means confusion. Believe me, everyone expects you to turn off depression when they are talking to you. 6 years later, a word can trigger tears and confusion in me. Now let's talk about the legal loopholes that can challenge the evidence of intoxication. Now, regarding blood work, but this is the one that I really came across that affected me. But there are many others, but we're going to kind of stick with blood work today. Now, there are several loopholes and potential issues that can be stressed to challenge the validity of the results. Now, here are some key points to consider. But before you do so, I want you to think about this a little bit, all the people that is involved in this, and how many ways the defense attorney can get that murderer that killed your child off or a lessened sentence. These are only a few. Now, when it comes to blood work, or for most evidence, would be chain of custody. Now, the blood sample must be appropriately documented and tracked from its draw to its analysis. Any breaks or gaps in the chain of custody can raise questions about the sample's integrity. Improper handling or storage. Blood samples must be stored at the correct temperature and handled according to strict protocols. Improper storage conditions can lead to contamination or degradation of the sample, affecting the results. Contamination. The blood sample can be contaminated at any stage from collection to analysis. This contamination can come from, unsterilized equipment, dirty hands, improper medical or laboratory personal handling, or exposure to other substances. I just want you to think of how many people that would have been involved just so far. And in court, believe me, they'd have to drag somebody in to testify on each one of those situations. That is the reason why everything takes so long. Expiration of testing kits. The testing kits and chemicals used to analyze blood samples have expiration dates. Using expired kits can produce inaccurate results. Think about that. Improper collection technique. Blood samples must be collected by qualified individual using proper techniques. Improper collection can lead to destruction of the blood cells or other issues affecting test results. Now, think about that. They have to call somebody in to testify in court on that the person who took the test, they will probably be called that person in. Delay in testing. Now, we're working with the government now and the state. A significant delay between the time blood was drawn and the time it's tested can lead to changes in the blood alcohol concentration, which is BAC, which today it's 2.0, but they're trying to lower it 0.05 in some states. And I believe Nevada's, no. I was going to say I thought Nevada was one of them, but I doubt that very much. It must be other states I'm thinking about. Now, this can be due to fermentation or other chemical changes in the this samples. Now, here's another one. Equipment, calibration, and maintenance. Now they have to bring somebody else in to testify on this. The equipment used to test blood samples must be properly calibrated and maintained. Deviations require calibration. Procedures can lead to inaccurate readings. Okay? More witnesses. The laboratory errors. Human errors in laboratories, such as mislabeling of samples, incorrect recording of results, potential mistakes can all affect the outcome of the blood test. Inadequate qualification of personnel. The personnel conducting the blood test must be adequately trained and qualified. The results can be questioned if someone performs this test without necessary expertise. Now, this one kind of hits me a little bit because the coroner's office where my son was taken to, the coroner was fired because I guess he didn't have the license to work there, and another person in the office was harvesting baby organs from deceased babies and sending them or selling them or giving them to California and Massachusetts, I believe. That's not the fault of my son. My son was killed by a man. The fact that the coroner's office is screwed up should not be a way of getting the man off that killed my son. Mix up of samples. Now, there is a risk of mixing up samples in a busy lab. Of course there is. This can lead to one person's results being attributed to another, which can be used to challenge the fidelity of this evidence. Again, there's another person or two people that have to bring in. Incomplete or inaccurate documentation any discrepancies or omissions, and believe me, they will take a magnifying glass to find a period off and say, whoops, maybe we can get you less time, criminal, drunk, killer. In the documentation related to a blood test, such as the time of collection, the identification of a sample, or the procedures followed, can be used to cast a doubt on the results. Oh my gosh. I mean, just think about this a little. The criminal has all the rights. A defensive attorney can argue that the blood test results are unreliable and should not be used as evidence in a DUI case. This was tried. Fine. Think about how many witnesses and how many things had to go on in this. But in my case, Dennis was too intoxicated to take a breathalyzer test. Now, wouldn't you think that that would mean that he was under the influence of alcohol? That he was drunk? Of course. We always hear, if you get a DUI, you will go to jail. Dennis killed my son. He wasn't arrested until 10 months later because he couldn't take the breathalyzer test to prove that he was drunk. And then when he was arrested, he bonded out twice. I was lucky. I had a state trooper who was very good. In fact, he kept in contact with me a couple of times after he called me and Melissa, my son's fiance, to make sure we were okay. He cared. And I did have an assistant DA, not the DA that I had problems with, another assistant DA who made sure that the documentation that was being discarded or thrown out, that she had a copy of it. So I was lucky. But wait. Now, the individual must give permission, which opens the door again to many loopholes, which is what happened in my case. In Texas, a DA's office told me that Dennis couldn't be arrested until proof of intoxication. And his driver's license was never taken away. Now, it's hard for me as a victim to believe that someone who has just killed someone, was too drunk to drive to take the breathalyzer, can drive for 10 months. He was too drunk to take the breathalyzer, so therefore he couldn't be, I guess, arrested that night. It's just maddening is the only word I can use. Unthinkable. If this was in a TV show, people would say, that couldn't happen. Oh, I can tell you things that could happen that you'd never believe in TV. Again, I will restate this. The law requires more concrete evidence. And again, I'm speechless, frustrated, angry, but this experience has been incredibly challenging for me, and I'm sure for others. Now, the danger posed by a drunk driver who, after he killed my child, remained free to drive was terrifying. As a victim, I was not aware that this man killed my son was free. If I had lived in Lubbock, I could have run into his family or him. Do you think they're going to say, hello, how are you? Or for that matter, his friends. This is why Marsy's Law was enacted in the 1980s. She did not know that the man she feared the most was bonded out. He found her. I guess they met in a grocery store, and he killed her. Now, we do have victims' rights. She should have been notified. The defense will dispute the cause of the crash, and it is a crash. It's not an accident, so don't let anybody say that it's an accident. They might argue that the factors other than intoxication, such as road condition, cause it. Hey, it was 2:30 a.m. and the road was straight, 4 lane. What else do they have in Texas? With no traffic except one car that witnessed the crash because Dennis sped by him, or I don't know if it's a her or him, so fast. And they heard the crash. I believe they are the ones that called it in. There was no mechanical failure. That's one thing they'll come up with. He blacked out. And this could be another loophole. Now, what causes you to black out? Duh. Alcohol. According to what I heard later, is that from the time he got to that car until the crash happened and the police came, he had no recollection of what he was doing. Honestly, why do people think it's fun to get drunk and make idiots out of themselves and destroy their lives and everybody else? Or I do not know. But the defense attorney could argue that the significant delay of 10 months in obtaining the blood work introduces substantial doubt about the accuracy and reliability of the results. They might question the chain of custody, suggesting that the extended time frame increased the risk of contamination, mishandling improper blood sample storage. The attorney could also contend that such a prolonged delay undermines the credibility of the protocols. Furthermore, they might highlight potential variations or violations of the defendant's right to a speedy trial and due process. The defendant's right to a speedy trial. What about the hell we're going through? Emphasizing that the timing is crucial for fair defense. All this could weaken the prosecutor's case. Now, I found out that it was common practice at that time that if a drunk only killed one person, they would be eligible for probation. Now, that was in Texas, not anywhere else. That means no prison time. Now, Dennis went missing on each of his probations. When the probation officer was asked why, she said she had too many cases and that he only killed one person. And the same thing I got was that there were too many DUI-related deaths as well. And that's the reason why they gave probation. This is unimaginable, but true. The reality is that a criminal gets all the rights. I covered this in another video. Now, your loved one is the only case number among many cases, and it takes years to get justice. But unless you have gone through this hell, there is no way that someone can understand how long it takes, because what they see on TV is what they believe. Court cases pile up, and your loved one becomes a case number. I've talked about plea deals in the past in court cases. The reality is that the court case requires a lot of time, years, and people. Well, the plea deal does not. It's between two people, normally the defense attorney and the DA. The DA does not have to get your permission, but should notify you. It is one of your victims' rights, commonly called, again, Crime Victims' Rights. Now, you must sign up with the State Department of Criminal Justice within your state. That would be SDCJ. Now, today I spoke about the reality of defense attorneys' unfair but legal loopholes in getting their clients lighter sentences. I shared the heart-wrenching experience of losing my son Kenley to a drunk driver and the difficult journey that followed. I hope by shedding light on these issues, I am raising awareness, and maybe we can push for some changes that ensure justice for victims and their families. And I do hope with my VIP panel and um, lectures, I guess is what you want to call them, in the future, that I can prevent some tragedies. I do hope. I am the proud mother of Dr. Kenley Gene Raney, who lost his life, along with his beautiful blue-heeled Australian shepherd, Marshall, on January 25th, 2019. Thank you.